Yo guys, what's going on? My name is HackingIsFreedom and welcome back to the 4th episode of What Was Cut, a series where we take a look at what exactly was cut from our favorite games. Today we're going to be talking about Call of Duty World at War. This is one of my personal favorite Call of Duties because this game introduced hands down one of the best game modes ever, and of course I'm talking about zombies. I've spent so many hours getting to high rounds and doing the Easter eggs with my buddies in later Call of Duties, but anyway, let's join our brothers and survive the tank war.
Survival!
Since I really enjoyed this game's story, let's talk about some of the map changes on the single player campaign first. The campaign was originally supposed to start in the training barracks, very similar to how Call of Duty 3 started. There were 4 stages to this training barracks. You would start in the shooting range, then move on to the mantle training, and so on. There's surprisingly leftover voice lines for this in the May 2007 alpha build. I'll play one of them now.
Marines! 4 hours ago, Colonel Khaled Al-Hazad assumed control of the Republic of Arabia. We are now at Alert 1 status. We will conduct PT, mount, and weapons training around the clock until further advised. That is all.
All the voice lines for this have a TMP prefix, meaning that they were just temporary, and I'm pretty sure this is the exact same speech from Call of Duty 3. The British once had their own mini-campaign, and 3 different levels were cut from it. The first mission would have been called Holland, and it seems they made it pretty far into development with this, as level script, textures, and these HD screenshots still remain in the game's files. The second mission was called Rhineland, but only level script and some textures remain. The third mission, however, is completely unknown, as only level script is left over. This next map is pretty strange. It's just a small piece of trees in the middle of the ocean, and it's called Living Battlefield. It's believed that this map was used as a concept or to test the zombies game mode. Instead of fighting zombies, there would be waves of Japanese soldiers. This map was also likely a test for the death card seen in the campaign, as all of them are located in the exact same spot for easy access. Continuing with the maps, let's move on to the ones that didn't make it into multiplayer. It kinda sucks that some of these never made into the game, because some of them look like they would have been really fun to play on. Most of these maps only have a loading screen left over, but some do have a mini-map as well. I'll quickly go over some of them here. So, first up is a map called Atoll, and I believe this was turned into Airfield, but that's just my speculation. Next is Beachhead, and by the map description, this was going to be used in the Tank War game mode. A very basic map called Carrier's left over, and I'm sure this was turned into Carrier for Black Ops 2. It just goes to show how long they had this idea in the works. This next map is called Cavern, and it actually looks pretty cool to be honest. The description just says, a Japanese cavern. This map, simply called Docks, was replaced by the Sub-Pens map we got in the final game. Although, a very similar map was supposed to appear in Black Ops 1, but it was also cut from that game as well. This next one was kinda strange as well. It's called Subway, and it was replaced by the Station map we have in the final game. And this was probably because Station fit better with the game's art style. I don't know, to me as well, this map looks really out of place for a game set in World War II. Wetlands was another map that was going to be used for the Tank War game mode. As the description states, a large wet farmland, good for large vehicles. It seems like it got pretty far into development in some of these other maps here. Another map called Nightfire was supposed to make it into the final game, as stated by Josh Olin, but it was left unfinished due to time constraints. Sadly, only this mini-map remains. Oddly enough, there's an unused loading screen that features the map Backlot from Call of Duty Modern Warfare. I'm pretty sure this is just a leftover though. And the final map is called Dog Test, and this was obviously used to test the functionality and pathfinding of the dog's AI. With the maps out of the way, let's talk about more stuff that was cut from multiplayer, specifically these 3 perks. So the first one was a perk that would have given you 6 PMD6 landmines, and I'm sure this was changed to the Satchel Charge later in development. The middle one is called Magic Wrench, and this was obviously going to be used in the Tank War game mode to repair your tank. And the last one is called Commanding Squad Leader, and this would have allowed you to give orders to your squad. You could do this in the final game, so I'm not really sure why it was a perk originally. Next, we have some weapons and attachments that go unused. There are sadly only 2 attachments that go fully unused in the game, one being a basic compensator, and the other being a select to fire switch. The compensator works just like the grip in the final game, and the select fire attachment was supposed to be on the SVT. This must have been cut real late in development because the World at War strategy guide still mentions this attachment. On to the weapons next, and we'll start with the 2 most known ones first. The first one is Brains, and I'm sure we've all seen this before. This was originally intended for the playable zombie game mode they were working on before it got scrapped. This mode would have played similar to the Grief mode seen in Black Ops 2. You also make the zombie attack sound each time you melee. The second one is Default Weapon, and once again I'm sure we all know about this. This is basically featured in every Call of Duty, and it always has this kill feed icon of the AK-47. In game, it appears much more squashed though. Next we have Takeo's Katana, and this is actually seen being used by the Japanese soldiers in the campaign. However, this created class icon and HUD icon suggest that we were once able to use it in multiplayer. We did finally, however, get to use this katana 7 years later in Black Ops 3, which is absolutely insane. A PPS-43 was originally planned to be used by the Soviets, but this was cut early in development as only this created class icon image remains. I'm pretty sure this was just changed to the PPSH-41 later in development. We also have a Creator Class icon and HUD icon for the PMD-6 landmines I spoke about earlier. Now the next 3 weapons are all remnants of when the British campaign was still in the game. We have the Lee Enfield, the Sten, and the Bren. Just these Creator Class and HUD icons remain in the files. And lastly, let's talk about some weapons that have an unused Pack-a-Punch variant. The Eviscerator is an upgraded Arasaka, and it appears that this was cut pretty late in development as it has a unique name, but it lacks the Pack-a-Punch engravings. The Snuff Box is an upgraded sawed-off double-barrel shotgun, and it's completely finished and works perfectly if you hack it back in the game. No idea why this was cut though. The Springfield and Moisten Nagant both have early unused Pack-a-Punch variants. Both lack a unique name and the Pack-a-Punch engravings. The Moisten Nagant also has a highly unfinished grenade launcher attachment. Well, while we were talking about Pack-a-Punch weapons, let's talk about some of the unused zombies content. Like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of script left over for the player zombifying. The zombified player would be equipped with the Brains weapon, have their speed increased by 30%, and all other zombies would ignore them. If they got killed by a human player, the zombified player would have gone into a down state, and this most likely means that other zombified players would have to revive you. Once again, this sounds a lot like the grief mode in Black Ops 2, and you may have seen it at the beginning of this clip, but there's also this text left over indicating when you become a zombie. It seems like the developers were tinkering with crawler rounds before they settled on dog rounds, as there's a single line of code left over in the zombiemode.gsc file indicating crawler-only zombies were supposed to spawn every 5 to 6 rounds. The 4 perk machines were supposed to have a more swamp-like appearance in Shin Onuma. Not entirely sure why these were cut, but it would have been a great addition to the atmosphere. And I'm sure we've all seen this one before too, the Ammo-Matic perk machine. But did you know that it was supposed to appear on Shin Onuma? The 4 playable characters even have some voice lines for this machine.
Max ammo machine. Ah, genius. An ammo machine? What a brilliant idea!
Ah, this is a blessing from the Emperor!
Ammo machine! What a wonderful idea!
And of course, that leads us into our next topic, unused voice lines. The first set of unused voice lines come from a cut kill streak simply called Airstrike, and the name of the war machine deployed would depend on the nationality of your team. So, for the Americans, it was the B-17 Flying Fortress.
B-17 acquired. Division's got a B-17 fueled and ready to go. B-17 armed and en route.
For the Japanese, it was the Kamikaze.
Kamikaze acquired! Your time to die for the Emperor is now! Our brother finds glory in making the ultimate sacrifice!
For the Russians, it was the Katyusha rockets.
Katyusha rockets acquired. Our Katyushas are ready to rain death. Our Katyushas will tear them to pieces.
And for the Germans, it was the Carpet Bomber.
Carpet bomb acquired! Bombers above, awaiting your command! Our bombs will destroy them where they hide!
Each faction also had a line that would play if their rival got an airstrike. Here's the Americans facing the Japanese.
Kamikaze incoming! Get to cover!
The Japanese facing the Americans.
They have brought their flying fortress upon us!
The Russians facing the Germans.
Take cover! German bombers above!
And the Germans facing the Russians.
Get to cover! Russian rockets inbound!
The level of detail that went into these voice lines honestly amazes me. It is so cool to see developers be historically accurate like this. There was originally 4 traps on Shin Onuma that players could use. One being a guillotine trap, one being a barrel trap, another being a battery type trap, and the last one being a helicopter trap. I'm assuming this later became the helicopter blade trap seen in Black Ops 3's Zetsubo no Shima, but the others don't really give us an insight on what they do. Each of the 4 playable characters have voice lines for these traps.
Shop and fly, freak bags! Amp it up! I'm gonna make a pile of maggot ash. Damn, I gotta move fast. Bullshit! All chopped up and everywhere to go. This will take care of them. Ah, good. I won't have to use my vodka. I should probably get out of the way. Of course this is now in my way.
They will be cut into 1,000 pieces! This will take care of them! They will all burn! I need to get through this quickly! I was not fast enough!
They will be cut into 1,000 pieces! Yay! Oh, this is going to be so fun! They will all burn! I must move quickly, before it closes! I was not fast enough!
In an early stage of the release, all 4 playable characters have a ton of unused voice lines spoken in temporary voice actors. There's around 70 of each character to be exact, but a lot of them are just repeated lines the real voice actors say in the final game. However, here's one voice line from each temporary voice actor. Dempsey is strangely the only character that had 2 different temp voice actors, but the second actor sounds pretty close to be honest.
Damn, that only counts as half a kill.
Gotta link up this terraformer,
teleporter.
Richthofen, go figure that machine out. I have to take a shit.
I'm not sure I can make it to the mainframe in time.
Oh, good, it is still here. What could this be?
The cut game mode Tank War I mentioned earlier also has a lot of voice lines associated with it. There's a voice line for each faction, so I'm not going to play them all, as a lot of them are pretty similar. But here's a few of them in random order.
Tank war!
We have destroyed the enemy tank.
We have a new tank! We have captured the enemy tank! Survival!
Tank War also had quite a few different tanks developed for the game mode. The first one being this M4 Sherman, and there's also a winterized version, which was obviously meant for the cut Holland level. This M8 Greyhound was going to be used by the Americans. The SD KFZ 222 was a vehicle that was going to be used by the Germans, and the winterized version once again being for the Holland level. The Type 1 Hokai was a vehicle that was going to be used by the Japanese. Although this vehicle doesn't feature any weapons on it, much like the real-life counterpart, I believe that this was going to be used as a transport vehicle rather than a fighting machine. Because the Japanese also have this tank, the Type 97 Chiha, and this was obviously meant to do the heavy lifting that the Type 1 couldn't. And while not intended for the Tank War game mode, this tank called Panther was going to be featured heavily in the Holland level. You can even see it in one of the screenshots I showed at the beginning of the video. And as we come to the end of the video, let's talk about some oddities. So the first oddity I want to show you guys is the sheer amount of placeholder textures left over in the final game. I'm not going to talk too much about them, but some of the developers' messages are pretty funny. You can also see some of these placeholder textures and effects in action in the May 2007 build. Next are a bunch of early designs for the multiplayer playlist icons. The ones with tanks are playlists that support vehicle warfare. This one specifically was for a random game mode, which would have been actually pretty cool to see in the final game. There was also an early Treyarch logo that was used for the ranking system, quite possibly meant for Treyarch employees only. However, I think this was changed to the unique clan tags developers can use, such as Rain, Move, and KRDR. The German Air Force, better known as the Luftwaffe, was supposed to appear in the game, but it got scrapped very early in development. There's two character models and this helmet left over, one being in the woodland camouflage, and the other having a more winterized look, most likely again for the Holland level. There's also another cut German faction called Volkssturm, and these people were a German militia that formed during the last months of World War II. It's rumored that this faction was supposed to appear in the levels Ring of Steel, Eviction, Heart of the Reich, and Downfall, but this is just speculation. This one I'm sure you all know about, but to test the functionality of tanks, the developers made this crude car called the default vehicle. It has 6 wheels and 2 Panzerschrecks on the sides. However, shooting doesn't work at all. Next up is another one just like the default vehicle, but this one's called Default Model. I'm sure you've seen this before, but this was used in place of the highly detailed models as a placeholder. Also to note, not sure if the developers were just bored or trying to have some fun, but this is the only female model in the entire game. In Shinonuma, text reading Tunguska can be seen just outside the map. If you go along this bridge, the writing can be seen on the left side of the wall. This is 100% an Easter egg, as the Tunguska event was a real-life event that caused massive devastation in 1908. The devastation caused was from a meteor about 200 feet wide, exploding before it hit the ground. And I'm sure you can see the correlation here, as Shinonuma also features a giant meteor outside the map. Surprisingly, there's still camos left over from COD 4. It would have been pretty cool to see some camos, but I feel like it would have clashed with the grittiness the devs were trying to portray in World War. In Nachtr on Toten, there's an invisible ladder just outside the map. This is just leftover collision data, as Airfield, the map Nachtr on Toten is based off of, has a ladder in the exact same spot. This ladder even made its way to the Black Ops 1 version of Nachtr on Toten. In Deriz, there's an unused room by the catwalk that was cut very late in development. If you go through the door with no clip, you can see a zombie barrier that's very similar to the wall barrier on Nachtr on Toten. There's a few blood splatters and a unique red light that makes any pack-a-punch weapon appear super red. Surprisingly, the floor, walls, and ceiling all have proper collision. In Verrucht, there's a few oddities I'd like to end off the video with. The first one being this row of different mounted machine guns. My personal guess is when the developers were testing auto turrets, they weren't really sure on which machine gun to use, so they put each one here for easy access. I'm sure we all know about this, but there's a turret under the fountain in the middle of the courtyard. This is where the previously mentioned auto turret was going to be placed. It would have costed 1500 points, and it would have worked just like the turret seen on Kino de Torten in Black Ops 1. You can still access this turret and even kill zombies with it, but it's very glitchy and hard to use because of its placement. The last oddity on this map is this strange untextured small box. I have no idea what this could have been used for, or what it was used for, but maybe it was a marker of some sort? And that's all I have for Call of Duty World at War. If you want to see more Call of Duties added to this series, please let me know in the comments. As always, if you have your own suggestion for the next What Was Cut episode, don't be afraid to comment down below. This episode did take a bit longer to edit and upload because I was watching my family member's cats all last week because she's on vacation. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.